Let's have a look at what's grabbing headlines here in France now. I suspect you can probably guess after we were talking to our guest Bruno Cortres, but Clément Bonnereau's with us. We're starting with those major street protests. Clément, hundreds of thousands expected to take to the streets today.
Indeed, L'Humanité says the time has come for a counterattack against the government. The paper expects hundreds of thousands to take to the streets this Tuesday, holding banners reading, "I am lazy and proud of it," a reference to comments Emmanuel Macron made over the weekend when he accused opponents of being cynical, extreme and lazy.
Yeah, papers really suggesting Macron may be facing the really big first test, if you like, of his presidency.
That's right. Left-wing Libération says that the president is trying to implement too many reforms at once. This as his popularity continues to fall. Not only is it a risky strategy, Libération writes, it could also stoke tensions and weaken Macron in the long term, that is, undermine his ability to implement reforms in the future. Conservative daily Le Figaro, meanwhile, says that the proposed reforms are necessary to turn the page on decades of high unemployment. I quote, "All those who say the reforms will usher in a social jungle, that is a state of lawlessness where employers may hire and fire without regard for rules, are deceiving people." Le Figaro concludes, whether you like it or not, reforming the country's labour laws is the only way to create jobs, reduce unemployment and give young people a better future.
Opponents of the reform, they're still pretty divided though, aren't they, Clément? Some unions are stopping short of calling for strikes.
Business Daily Les Echos reminds us that out of the 4 main trade unions in France, only 2 have called for protests, but all 4 unions seem to agree on one thing. They say the proposed reform could have a negative impact on gender equality in the workplace. Currently, measures to promote equality are imposed on all companies by the Labour Code. Now, with the reform, they'll be subject to negotiation between employers and their employees, and companies may even choose not to include the issue at all in the negotiations.
As you said, though, Clément, Macron's been widely criticised for his recent comments, calling opponents of the reform lazy.
Absolutely. Macron has been accused of showing contempt for the poor and being out of touch with ordinary people. In an interview to French channel TMC, however, Emmanuel Macron said he would not take back what he said, insisting that there were indeed people who deserved to be called cynical and lazy, because they would like things to stay the same in France and Europe. They're against all change. Liberal daily L'Opinion, however, asks why Macron is so keen to speak his mind so bluntly. The paper says he's determined to reform the country, this despite facing major challenges.
Now, Emmanuel Macron also facing criticism for his handling of a different crisis here. This, of course, is on the French island of Saint-Martin, badly hit by Hurricane Irma last week, and he's due there today, isn't he?
That's right. Emmanuel Macron is expected on the island later today. He's escaping a wave of protests at home, but will be facing the anger and frustration of residents in Saint Martin, who say they feel abandoned by authorities in the face of widespread looting and violence, as well as food and water shortages. Hurricane Irma has left a trail of destruction on the island. Schools, hospitals and public buildings have been destroyed. Le Monde even reports that a school on the outskirts of Manigot, the largest town on the island, has been almost completely washed away, with only the front door still standing like a totem amid the rubble, writes Le Monde.
And the Ecology Minister, Nicolas Hulot, he's also been facing some criticism. Now, today in Le Parisien, though, he's urging immediate action. This is to try to combat, of course, climate change.
That's right. We are all in this together, he told Le Parisien, urging other countries to move quickly to ensure the full implementation of the Paris Agreement. Nicolas Hulot also hits back at critics, saying that not a second has been wasted by the government to address the crisis and help the victims. However, he says that miracles don't exist, and it is not possible, he says, to evacuate thousands of people in one day. And I'll end with this cartoon still in Le Parisien. Nicolas Hulot says, "Let me remind you that we only have one planet. Otherwise, I would have chosen to be a minister on a much calmer planet."
Yeah, nicely put, Nicolas Hulot. Lots of news to do with Emmanuel Macron today. We'll see what kind of day he has at the end of it. Thank you very much, Clément. Clément Bonnereau there with today's French papers.